Well, of course, we've been discussing election 2016 all week long, and we have our own local version of election 2016 going on right now, and the battle for Texas 19. And joining me in studio, Jodey Arrington, running for Congress in studio with me. Jodey, welcome back to the show.
Chad, it's great to be back. It's good to see you, and good morning to your listeners.
Well, appreciate you coming in today. First question I have for you. You've seen all the news coverage out there nationally of what's going on in Congress. Congress has a 78% disapproval rating. Why would you want to join Congress? At this point, why do you want to run?
Well, I mean, first of all, West Texas and the big country deserve the strongest and most effective representation and to promote the values that, quite frankly, America needs to put it back on track. So first of all, because this is home and these people out here deserve strong leadership. Number two, I mean, I'm a proud American like your listeners, like yourself, and I'm very concerned with the direction of our country. I've got 3 children, and quite frankly, I am not convinced that they're going to have the same freedoms, the same opportunities, and the same security that you and I have enjoyed. And so I feel like it's our generation's duty to step up and to lead, and I have the experience to do that. I can hit the ground running. I've got a track record of cutting the budgets federally and reducing government, which I think is a big part of the problem. And so it's too important for our country's future. We got to fight for it and restore the greatness of America.
Go a little more in depth on that about experience, because that is something I think that will be brought up during this campaign, is the experience factor and what a freshman will be able to do in Congress. What experience exactly do you think you bring to this race?
Well, I've been blessed with a unique set of experiences, working for President Bush for a decade and then working for Kent Hance for almost a decade at Texas Tech. You know, the 4 cornerstones of our economy are healthcare, higher education, energy, and agriculture. And my career has touched all of them in some way, currently working in healthcare. So I understand those industries. I think you're going to hear a lot of talk about conservative values. And I think conservative values are important. I think what's more important is converting conservative values to conservative results. And so during my time with President Bush, I worked with a banker from Amarillo, Texas. And we were in the belly of the beast. Part of the problem is this excessive regulatory regime coming out of the Obama administration. We were at the FDIC. We looked around. We saw waste. We saw inefficiency and an opportunity to right-size the organization and cut the budgets. We did, to the tune of tens of millions of dollars. That's exactly what we need to be doing in the federal government today. It's not popular. It's not fun, but you do it because you're a fiscal conservative, because the people are counting on you to do it. So whether it's that, Chad, or it's going to Tech, where we spent, again, about 8 years in leadership there, we held tuition and fees flat not once but twice, and when nobody else was doing it. And yet we saw record growth in enrollment. We doubled our research. And we saw more technology spinning out of Tech, more startup companies. So I think that's the kind of leadership that we need here in West Texas, and it's certainly the leadership we need in our country. And I think that record of leading and getting results is what I'm going to spend a lot of time talking about when I'm on the campaign trail.
Visiting with Jodey Arrington, running for Congress here in Texas 19. Let me ask you about a complaint, one of the common complaints that I got about the congressman you're hoping to replace in Congress, and that was leadership. And you've brought up leadership. A lot of voters did not see Congressman Neugebauer as a leader. Made most of the right votes, but not necessarily as a leader of the House. Do you feel that way, and how would you be any different in your mind?
Well, I can just go back again. The best predictor of future performance is past performance. And in everything I've done, I believe, demonstrated great leadership, strong leadership. And that is, I've worked with everybody that where I have been placed and been given responsibility, and I've left it, I feel better and stronger than I found it. And that's a team effort. We're out here talking about ourselves a lot, but I spearheaded a lot of that. And so we got to Texas Tech, and just as an example, we had experienced 3 years of decline in enrollments. And in order to have a flat tuition and fee those 2 years, we had to grow in enrollment. And that's when Chancellor Hance said, we're going to go to 40,000 by 2020. So we're not only going to turn the ship around, we're going to head fast track to growing the university. He named me as the chair of the enrollment task force. We've had record enrollment growth every year. 7,000 approximately students later, here we are. And so I look forward to the opportunity. If the good people of this region elect me, I can hit the ground running. I do understand how the wheels turn there. And I believe my experience at the FDIC, in the Bush administration, the relationships I made, knowing the process, but also, again, most importantly, being able to deliver results when you're put in a position of responsibility. I've been accountable for it. We've delivered on it. And I hope that the folks in District 19 will have confidence to send me and represent them. Be proud to do that.
Let's talk about ag. Obviously, a big area out here for ag. Another complaint that I have heard, and I think you're already seeing the results of those complaints pop up in this race early on, where I think the candidates who are in so far have talked about ag quite a bit. You've mentioned ag already quite a bit in some of your other interviews. Do you see yourself putting more emphasis if you're in Congress on agriculture?
Well, if you believe that the role of this office is to represent the interest and the values of this district, that you have to believe that agriculture is at the top of the list in terms of promoting and defending policies that are going to grow and prosper our economy. Agriculture is the backbone of our economy, and you know that. The listeners know that. And look, it is tough to be a farmer. It's tough to turn a profit out there. There's tremendous risk, and we have been blessed as a country to have an abundant, cheap food supply. Food independence and food security is every bit as important as energy independence and security. And so having some tools to manage the risk, whether it's crop insurance or whether it's price support, that represents 0.1% of the entire federal budget. That is not what's causing the $18 trillion in debt. Mm-hmm. It would be programs like the new mandatory spending programs like Obamacare, that not only running up our debt, but crushing our small businesses where they cannot make investments, they cannot grow the economy and create more jobs. So, yes, the farmers, somebody to fight for the farmers is an imperative, in my opinion. And again, it's not just having a good farm bill, it's staving off this excessive and intrusive and abusive regulatory regime like this Clean Water Act regulation that, quite frankly, is beyond the pale to regulate puddles, ponds, and ditches. It's going to cost a lot of money for the farmers and small businesses. And I've been in the belly of the regulatory beast. I know the tricks of the trade. I understand how they can game the system and do end runs. And it's shameful. It's an affront on the democratic process when you're legislating from the Oval Office or you're legislating from the fourth branch of government, which I used to refer to as the regulatory agencies. But I understand how that happens. So if anybody, I believe, can hold those agencies accountable and stave off this unnecessary, to be polite, and quite frankly, abusive and intrusive regulatory behavior of EPA and other regulatory agencies, it's me.
Jodey Arrington in studio with us here on News Talk 790 KFYO. I'll tell you this, let's take the break. When we come back, we'll have one more segment with Jodey Arrington. You can visit his website, jodeyarrington.com, for more information, and we'll be right back here on the Chad Hasty Show, News Talk 790 KFYO. All right, back on the Chad Hasty Show, News Talk 790 KFYO. Jodey Arrington, candidate for Congress, Texas 19, in studio with me. We have one more segment with Jodey Arrington, and Earlier, you had I thought it was a pretty good line. Conservative values turn them into conservative results. That is something that a lot of voters, not only here, but I think nationwide, pretty upset about, because you have a lot of folks who run as a conservative. They run conservative campaigns. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. They get to Washington, D.C. Nothing happens. So let me ask you this. How do you envision turning conservative values into conservative results?
Well, let me just affirm that Americans are fed up with Washington. I'm fed up with Washington. Who isn't? I mean, who is not tired of hearing all the talk and no action while our country is driving off a cliff? And, Americans get up, they work hard, they play by the rules, they live within their means, but their federal government doesn't. They just print more money, borrow more money from China. We're in $18 trillion debt. And you've had an administration that has exacerbated all this in the minds and hearts of people, conservatives especially, this anger. And it's because we've had this abuse of power out of the Oval Office. I mean, if they want to ram something through like Obamacare, they'll find some maneuver to do that, which is not appropriate. If they want some regulation, they just find a way to roll that out. If he doesn't like something about immigration and, for example, stopping the deportation of illegal immigration, he'll just create law by administrative fiat. So the frustration is as high as I've ever known it to be. And again, we've got to fight for the future of America. I've got 3 reasons I've told people that I'm doing this. Nathan, Jane, and Hank the Tank, my 3 kids. I've got to look them in the eyes and say, your daddy's doing everything I can to hand over to you an America that has nothing but greatness ahead of it, nothing but prosperity and opportunity for you. But I can't say that today. So
overall, have you been frustrated with Republicans? Forget about Obama. But I think everyone out here, well, not everybody, the majority of people listening, they're fed up with the Oval Office and President Obama. Have you been fed up with Republicans in Congress?
I'm fed up with all of them. I mean, both sides. And I do think the House has provided better conservative leadership than Mitch McConnell in the Senate, so I think that you can talk about Barack Obama and the administration, and that we hopefully will have a Republican president in there. I think that'll make a big difference. Harry Reid's going to retire, so I think that's going to make a big difference. You got to do what you can within the context of not having the 60 votes in the Senate, but we need to put legislation. We need to put bills on the desk of the president. And force him to be accountable to the American people and to make a decision. So I'm frustrated with all sides. And we hadn't talked about this, but what I'm probably most frustrated with, outside of this $18 trillion debt and hamstringing future generations with that, is our lack of border security. The number one job of the federal government is to protect its citizens. And our national security is, our policies are naive, our position and presence and projection of power is weak, and we're not securing our border. To me, that is shameful for a great country like America. So that would be the first order of business for me as a congressman representing District 19.
Let me ask you this. When you look at Congress right now, and I'll ask you about one of the issues that just recently there was a big fight about, and that was defunding Planned Parenthood. There were Republicans who wanted to shut down the government over the funding of Planned Parenthood. There were Republicans that said, no, this is a bad idea. We're going to get blamed for this. This is not going to go the direction we want it to go. If you had been in Congress during that fight, what would you have said? What side would you have been on? Shutting down the government or keeping it open, live to fight another day?
Well, I think you can shut down a lot of the government and still fulfill your obligations. I think it's important. We have a moral obligation to our children and grandchildren to show them that we pay our debts. But there's a lot of the government we could shut down, and there are certain hills that you should die on. I mean, You can negotiate and get the best deal you can, and that whole Ronald Reagan, I'll take 80% and I'll come back and fight for the next 20%. But then there are those issues that you really can't compromise on, and that Planned Parenthood and what they're doing to sell the body parts of aborted fetuses and the issues of life, that's a moral imperative for our country, certainly for me personally. That's a hill to die on. But what I would do is send...
So that would have been a shut down the government.
That would have been one that I would have sent to the desk of Barack Obama and said, this is unacceptable. Taxpayers are not going to fund an abortion factory. And those folks that are committing not just unethical acts, but illegal acts should be prosecuted. And here, it's on your desk. And, sure, he has veto power, but why aren't we sending him bills so that he has to make those decisions and explain himself to the American people? So, yeah, Chad, there are some things that you want to fall on the sword for. I'd say defunding Planned Parenthood would be one of them.
Do you think, and you brought up Obamacare earlier, can Obamacare be defunded?
From what I understand, you can use reconciliation. By the way, that was the strategy that Obamacare came about, and inappropriately so. Because there's certain things you can do through reconciliation that are budget in nature, and certain policy issues and regulatory issues that you can't. So he abused his power, as did the Democratic leadership at the time, to ram that through. What I would say is to respect rule of law, to respect democracy and the will of the people. I would use what I've understood as reconciliation to cut the legs out from it. Take everything you can, repeal everything you can within the context of reconciliation, and then go repeal the rest of it when we have a Republican president. But Obamacare if we couldn't afford it to begin with. I mean, don't get me started on Obamacare. I talked to a guy in Abilene the other day who had a landscaping business. Basically, he was mowing yards from the time he was 15 years old. He's about my age. I'm 43. And now his little landscaping company is an outdoor living company. And he said, I asked him, what's the one thing that you want me to remember? If God willing and the people are willing, I'm elected as your next congressman. He said, Jodey, I used to have a $50,000 cost in health benefits for my employees. Today it's $383,000. He couldn't be more specific. He said it's crushing me, and I'm looking for ways to, unfortunately, reduce my workforce and reduce the hours so that I don't have to because I can't afford it, and I can't keep passing on the cost to my customers. So Obamacare has been sold inappropriately and falsely, and it is crushing our economy. We got to do whatever we can to repeal it.
Jodey Arrington, Republican for Congress in Texas 19. We'll have you back in studios. This race really gets going out here. Appreciate your time today.
Chad, thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Your website, jodeyarrington.com. You can find them on Facebook and all the other social media platforms out there as well.